Shabbat Shalom, my dear friends. Shabbat Shalom. This week we are reading from Parashat Bo. It's also the week before Tu B'Shvat. And as a shout out, next Wednesday night at 7 p.m., we're going to have a Tu B'Shvat Seder. And you'll see that all sort of connects to what I'm going to talk a little bit about this morning. So my dear friends, we are now in the middle of winter, the winter of our social distancing from each other, and we might despair. Will spring come? Will we ever be able to get together again in our sanctuary? Will we be able to celebrate with our families anew? And in their wisdom, the rabbis many years ago created in the land of Israel a small minor holiday in the middle of winter, Tu B'Shvat. It doesn't even have a grand name, the 15th of the month of Shvat. The Mishnah, the first post-biblical law code, says that there are 4 new years. One new year we obviously continue to celebrate, which is Rosh Hashanah, the high holidays. But it also says there's Rosh Hashanah Le'elan, the new year of the tree. And note very carefully, it's tree in the singular and not in the plural. In the Bible, in the time when our ancestors lived an agricultural life, Tu B'Shvat had significance. It had agricultural significance. Our ancestors planted trees in the spring, in the summer, in the fall. Hard to keep track as to when their birthday was. When did they plant a tree? And it was important because in the 4th year of having planted a tree, it was then permitted to eat from the tree. Also, depending on how many trees you had and when they were planted, you needed to bring a maaser. You needed to bring a tithe. So you needed to know the birthday of the trees. So the rabbis made it simple. They said there's one birthday, Tu B'Shvat, the 15th of the month of Shvat. And as long as our ancestors lived in Eretz Yisrael, and as long as they were an agricultural people, this holiday had great significance. But over the years, our ancestors were either exiled or fled or left Eretz Yisrael, and they dispersed all over the world. And Tu B'Shvat and the laws of tithing and the laws pertaining to trees only applied to Eretz Yisrael. So for hundreds of years, Tu B'Shvat waned in its observance. But in the 16th century, in the rise in Tzfat of Kabbalah and Jewish mystics, Tu B'Shvat was revitalized. It came back with a sense of energy. And why was that? Because in the Zohar and in the major writings of the mystics, the tree had great significance. Because much of the tree was above ground. You could see the leaves, you could see the branches, you could see the fruit flowering on the branches. But without a strong root system, without what you couldn't see, the nistar, there could be no agricultural life, there could be no mitzvot. So for the mystics, it was a great significance because it symbolized where God was. God was hidden. What we see in the world was not God. God was hidden. And the job of the mystics, the role of the mystics was to find God and to reveal God. So the image of a tree really fit in with their worldview. And so they created the Tu B'Shvat Seder. And the Tu B'Shvat Seder was all about revealing the klipot, all of the hidden aspects of God. And how did you do that? The Tu B'Shvat Seder began with a fruit that had some kind of material around it. It had skin, and you needed to peel back the skin in order to eat the fruit. revealing not only the delicious fruit inside, but symbolizing revealing God. And at the next level, you had a fruit that had a pit inside. So you didn't see the pit, but once you got into the deep part of the fruit, you saw God, you found God, because you found the pit. Again, it was the symbolism of peeling back the layers. And so for our mystics, the tree, the Ilan, Rosh Hashanah le'Ilan, Tu B'Shvat, took on a whole mystical experience. It was a way not to look at the agricultural roots of the Jewish people, but a way to find God in their lives. And so they created the Tu B'Shvat Seder. Let me talk a little bit in depth about the Tu B'Shvat Seder for a moment. And let me tell you my favorite story about a Tu B'Shvat Seder. It seems that there was a Tu B'Shvat Seder that was being created and run, and lots of people were joining, and one was in heaven and one was in hell. And they looked alike because around the table of the Tu B'Shvat Seder, which was beautifully decorated with fruits and vegetables and flowers, all kinds of important people sitting around in their most beautiful clothes. But when a young girl was invited to look at it, the rabbi said, "What do you see?" And she said, "They look alike. They're beautiful tables, lots of fruits and vegetables. But I see that everybody has very long arms and they can't bend their arms. And attached to their unbent arms, they're spoons. But I can see that in hell, no one is eating. But in heaven, everyone is eating." And the rabbi said, "Young lady, look closely. Why is that?" And the young girl looked around the table and she saw that in heaven, everyone was eating, not because they could feed themselves, but because they were feeding each other. My dear friends, what does that teach us? That teaches us that the miracle of Tu B'Shvat, the spirit of Tu B'Shvat, the spirit of having a Tu B'Shvat Seder is not about feeding ourselves, but it's about feeding each other. It's about helping each other. And when we do, that is when we find heaven. I want to make one small note that maybe you've never noticed. What's the logo of the Jewish Center? It's a tree, not a forest, not trees, but a tree. And I've asked a few people about the origins of it, and we're not 100% sure. So let me give it this meaning. Let me say that that tree represents our community. Why does the Ilan, why does this single tree represent our community? Number one, it says the branches and the leaves, that's all the mitzvot that we do. And the root system, that's God. And we're trying to find God. But mostly it's a message about community. Because how do we know that we are a community? Because we cannot survive by ourselves. We are not self-sufficient. We need each other. We need to feed each other. And when we do, we will find heaven at the Jewish Center. Shabbat Shalom, my dear friends. Shabbat Shalom. Join us next Wednesday at our Tu B'Shvat Seder.